All right, guys. So what I want to do is work on, this is 7.6, and it's finishing up the day that several of you all missed on that block day. So I am going to grab this, start going through these proofs, and I will tell you the second one was a doozy, so I will go back and do it on a separate video last for the benefit of the whole class. All right, it is bonus though. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. Now, one thing that you have to remember is our new item right here. Oh, and I'm not on draw with touch. Let me try this again. Excuse me. So this 2x right here is our new item. So what you need to remember is you need to look on your formula sheet. Cosine of 2x is not 2 times cosine of x. It's equal to cosine squared x minus sine squared x. Miss Butel, what in the world are you talking about? It's on your formula sheet. Look on the orange sheet here because this is not one that you would intuitively know. Now, you could work with either side. The most complicated side is usually the best, but in these beginning ones, working with 2x first is probably going to be to your benefit. So we're going to say 1 minus, I'm going to replace, I'm going to change color so you can see this happen. I'm going to replace this with this big guy right here. And notice I'm inserting a binomial where there was just one term. Okay, so I'm going to put this in there as cosine squared x minus sine squared x all over cosecant x. Now, I can tell you cosecant x will break down. I'm probably going to hang on to it for a minute because I want to show you what happens here. So don't forget to distribute this negative to both pieces. That means I have 1 plus, I'm sorry, fix that, 1 minus cosine squared x plus sine squared x all over cosecant squared x. Oh, cosecant x. There's no squared in that. My bad. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is that when I look at this, number one, there I have a sine cubed over here. So I like the sine squared because that probably means I'm well on my way. So what I'm going to do here is take and simplify this. Go back, look at your terms. We had sine squared x. These are your identities, plus cosine squared x equals 1. So if I were to rewrite this to solve for sine, cosine would move to the other side with a minus sign attached. So that means this is going to be sine squared x. So my next line, I'm going to have sine squared x plus sine squared x all over cosecant squared x. Square cosecant x. I want to turn that into a squared so bad. Now, guys, this is 1, 2 of the same thing. So that makes me have 2 sine squared x's over. Now, this is where I'm going to go ahead and change this guy. So it's 1 over sine x. Now, I'm going to keep change flip. So this is going to get flipped and turn into sine x over 1, and that's multiplication. So 2 times sine squared times sine is sine to the third x, and I'm done. Okay? All right, looking at the next one. This one was crazy, so I'm going to come back to it last or on a separate video. And I'm going to go ahead and take this one on. Now, what I want to point out, there's my sine 2x, and I'm going to state that property, that identity up here, sine 2 theta is equal to 2 sine theta cosine theta. It is not It is not. This is not the same as 2 sine of theta because it would have said that. That's not what it is. It's all of this, not this. Be careful. So I'm going to replace, oh, wait a minute. I get to replace this guy from sine squared x plus cosine squared x equals 1. I always look for 1 plus, 1 minus anything. This got pulled over there, so what I'm left with is a sine squared x over, and I'm going to change this out to 2 sine, whoops, all of a sudden I had an x and it was a theta. Let's go back and make this a theta. And then 2 sine theta cosine theta. All right, so what I'm going to do from this is I know that sine squared theta, it seems to help you all when I do this, so I'm going to do this. Sine squared means sine times sine over 2 sine theta, cosine theta. Now, what's really cool about this is that you can quickly see the sine theta cancel, which gives me sine theta over 2 cosine theta. And I left my theta off, of course. Now, if you'll look at this grouped item right here, sine over cosine is equal to tangent. Now, guys, this is, okay, and that 2 is in a denominator. So I could technically pull the 2 out front, and there's the 1/2. And that means that sine over cosine is tangent. And I'm done. Bingo. The end. All right, look at the next one. Oh, look at this one. This is our 2 sine theta. Now, this is one that, this is the really simple side. All I know from this is 2 sine x cosine x. Well, that doesn't get me very far, and nowhere does it give me anything like a tangent. So what I'm going to do is actually work with this side and see if I get it looking like this so that I can finish it out. Okay, we're not going to use that right now, but I'm going to work with 2 tangents. So 2 tangent means, the first thing I see, let's go ahead and make it 2 times sine over cosine. Sine over cosine x. That's the top. The bottom, 1 plus tangent squared. Now that means that we have 1 plus tangent squared x equals secant x. So that means this is secant x, secant squared. And secant squared will simplify, and then I'm going to inverse and multiply. So 2 sine x over cosine x over 1 over cosine squared x. Okay, so I'm going to keep change flip. This is what's going to change and flip. It's going to move to up here and become cosine squared x over 1. And then what's going to happen is this is going to cancel. I'll tell you what, before I let it cancel, I will go ahead and show you what this looks like. Before this cancels, let's ignore the fact that I drew a line through that. I'll show you what cancels in just a second. So I'm going to have 2 sine x cosine squared means cosine times cosine. Cosine x cosine x all over just this one little cosine x. And technically cosine x times 1, but I don't need the times 1. So this cancels, or you can cancel it with the last one, which would have meant this canceled right here with this squared piece. So you could have taken a little bit of a shortcut there, not much. 2 sine x cosine x, and let's make that looks like an x and not an upside down V. All right, and that is equal to, if you remember, that's what sine of 2x is. Sine 2x, not sine squared x, sine of 2x. Now it matches the other side, and I'm done. All right, last one, I think. Yes, our last one. I've worked this from both sides, and I don't know if I have to be any more creative, but this one has both sine of 2x, cosine of 2x. So I'm going to show you how it works using the right-hand side. This becomes 2 sine x cosine x plus 1 plus cosine squared x minus sine squared x. Now, technically, it's plus all of this for this guy, but with an addition, there's no need to distribute the plus sign, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is look at what I can easily pull together here. And I notice that 1 and a minus cosine will create something. And guys, it is okay to swap these places to let the 1 and sine squared combine because they're all attached by addition. They are not attached through multiplication. Now, the 2 sine cosine up front are multiplied, so I wouldn't be able to pull those apart, but I can swap out a plus sign. 2 add-ins can be swapped in order. All right, so what that's going to leave me is 2 sine x cosine x plus this cosine first, cosine squared x, and then what comes together from this is plus another cosine squared x. Now, what happens when I have 2 of these guys? Not one of them's not positive, negative, so they cancel, but I have 2 of them. So 2 sine x cosine x plus 2 cosine squared x. Because there's 1 here, that makes 2 here. So far, so good. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to underline this. I have a 2 in both pieces. I have a cosine in both pieces, and I know that is a cosine squared, okay? Cosine squared means cosine times cosine. And the reason I highlighted that is I kind of had glanced back over here and went, whoa, according to this rule, I need to be able to factor out a 2 cosine. Well, I see a 2 cosine in the whole thing. So 2 cosine x times sine x, because 2 cosine x times sine x gives me that first piece, plus, well, what would be left out of this if the 2 went up front and one of the cosines? It would leave me a cosine. Guys, think about this, but 2 cosine times cosine leaves 2 cosine squared x. That squared is part of it because it gets multiplied cosine times cosine. And guess what? I'm done. That's what it was wanting. All right, so I'm going to stop this video so it's not too long because that number 2 problem is a doozy.